I was hanging up missing posters for my sister when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I grabbed for it so fast I almost dropped it. Ava? No, honey, it's Mom. My whole body sagged. I pressed my hand against my chest and closed my eyes. I need to talk to you about Oliver. Mom, not this again. He's just Ava's boyfriend. I checked her location. Her phone is pinging at his house. He told the police she left after dinner. If she left, why is her phone still there 3 weeks later? I pressed my forehead against the telephone pole. Maybe she left it on the counter. People forget their phones. Your sister? The girl who panics if her phone is in the other room? Mom. And he calls me every day. He cries on the phone, but it's the same cry every time. Same words, same pauses. Like he's reading from a script. My stomach tightened and I gripped the phone harder. I didn't want to believe her. I was standing in front of the missing poster I'd just stapled up. Ava's birthday photo. She was laughing with the sun necklace Mom gave her glinting against her collarbone. I reached up and touched her face in the photo and my throat tightened. Mom, you haven't slept in 3 weeks. You're wearing her sweatshirt to bed. I think the stress is making you see things. I'm not crazy. Her voice cracked and I could hear her start crying and I squeezed my eyes shut. I'm telling you something is wrong with that man. I'll go check on him today, okay? I'll look around. Will that make you feel better? Bring something of hers home. Anything. I just want something that smells like her. And pay attention, because I'm telling you that boy is not what he seems. I hung up and wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I pulled out my phone and typed, "Good morning, sunshine," to Ava, the way I did every morning, because she used to send it to me every day since I left for college, and I couldn't stop sending it back. Delivered. I stared at that word, and my chest ached. Oliver called me 10 minutes later, crying so hard I could barely understand him. He said he couldn't stay in the house anymore, and he needed help packing. His voice cracked when he said, "Her shampoo is still in the shower." My eyes stung, and I wiped them hard because he sounded like a man who missed my sister as much as I did. I told him I was on my way. The drive to Oliver's house took 20 minutes, and I cried for most of it. I kept picturing Ava standing on the porch waving at me the way she always did when I pulled in. I pulled into the driveway and sat there staring at the porch. Empty. I wiped my face and got out. Oliver opened the door, and he looked terrible. Red eyes, unshaven, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it for days. He pulled me into a hug and held on, and I could feel him shaking against me. I rubbed his back and told him we'd find her, and my voice cracked on, "Find." He pulled back and wiped his face with both hands and tried to smile, and couldn't. He walked me to the kitchen and poured me a coffee without asking. Cream and no sugar, the way he always made it at family dinners. He pulled out a chair for me and set a box of tissues between us. I pulled out my phone while he poured his own cup and checked Ava's messages. "Good morning, sunshine." Delivered. Still delivered. He sat down across from me and I put the phone away. "Do you think they'll find her?" His eyes were wet. I gripped my cup and my throat tightened. "I don't know. I just keep thinking about where she could be." His voice got quiet. Like, is she scared? Is she cold somewhere? Is she alone? My eyes burned and I looked down at my cup. He looked up at me and a tear ran down his cheek and he wiped it away. I was going to ask her to marry me. I had the ring and everything. I was going to do it at that Italian place she loves, and she was going to cry because she always cries at everything. He pressed his hand over his eyes. He was crying the same way he cried on the phone with my mom. Same words, same pauses. I squeezed my coffee cup until my fingers ached. He pointed me toward the garage. "Start in there. I'll work upstairs. I can't handle her stuff yet." He went up the stairs without looking back. The garage was cold and smelled like motor oil. I started pulling boxes off shelves and stacking them by the door. I worked my way to the chest freezer against the back wall. I pulled out my phone and typed, "Good morning, sunshine," to Ava, the way I did every morning. I hit send, and from inside the freezer, a phone buzzed. I stopped. Every molecule in my body stopped. I stared at the freezer. I typed, "Ava," and hit send. The phone buzzed again, inside the freezer. I grabbed the counter behind me to hold myself up. I walked toward the freezer. My legs were moving, but I couldn't feel them. I grabbed the lid with both hands and lifted it. Frozen vegetables on top. A folded blue tarp underneath that didn't look like it belonged with the food. I grabbed the edge of the tarp and pulled it back. Something was under it. Skin. Gray-blue skin. I stopped. My fingers were still gripping the tarp. I pulled it further, and a shoulder appeared. Then a neck. Then a jaw. Then a face. My hands locked around the fabric, and I couldn't let go. A woman was curled on her side at the bottom of the freezer with her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes were open. She was frozen solid with dark lips and stiff hair fanned out behind her head, frost on her eyelashes, and in her frozen hand, pressed against her chest, a phone with a cracked screen glowing with my text. "Good morning, sunshine." I stared at her face and my whole body went cold because I knew that face. I had known that face my entire life. She was wearing the sun necklace, the tiny gold chain with the sun pendant that Mom gave her, frozen against her collarbone, the same necklace from the missing poster on every telephone pole in town. I was looking at my sister. A sound ripped out of my throat and I choked it back with both hands. I stumbled away from the freezer and my hip slammed into the workbench and a can of screws crashed to the floor. I pressed both hands over my mouth so hard my teeth cut my lip. My whole body was convulsing. I could feel vomit rising in my throat and I swallowed it down and it burned. Tears were pouring down my face and I was shaking so hard my knees were knocking together. Oliver's footsteps creaked upstairs. I froze. Snot and tears were running through my fingers. The footsteps stopped. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The footsteps started again, and I let out a shaking breath through my nose. I looked at Ava one more time. Her eyes were still open, still looking at nothing. I lowered the lid with both hands and pressed down on it. My arms were shaking so hard the lid was rattling against the frame. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal and sobbed as quietly as I could. My phone was in my back pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands and typed "body in freezer" to 911. I had to delete and retype twice. I hit send. The progress bar crawled halfway and stopped. 1 bar of signal flickering to nothing. The bar disappeared. The message failed. I squeezed the phone so hard the case creaked. I wiped my face with both hands and took 3 shaky breaths. I forced myself to let go of the lid. I forced my legs to move. I grabbed the door frame because my knees almost buckled. I could hear Oliver upstairs. I wiped the last of the tears off my face and opened the door. Oliver was right there, coming down the stairs with a knife in one hand and an apple in the other. I almost screamed. I bit it back so hard my teeth cracked together and I tasted blood. He held a slice out to me on the blade. "Want some? You look like you haven't eaten." I shook my head. My mouth wouldn't work. He bit into a slice and set the knife on the counter with the blade facing me, 3 feet away. "You okay? You look pale. Dusty in there." I tried to smile. My face twitched instead. He watched me for a beat too long, then leaned against the counter. "I'll be upstairs if you need me." His footsteps faded, and I lunged for the kitchen counter and grabbed my phone out of my jacket pocket. My fingers were shaking so badly, I mistyped the address twice. I deleted it and started over, pressing each letter with shaking hands. I typed the location and "my sister's body in freezer, please help," and hit send and gripped the counter edge with both hands and held my breath until the bar filled and it said delivered. I shoved the phone on silent and into my back pocket. I grabbed a box and carried it to the living room. My hands were trembling so hard the glasses clinked together when I picked them up. I wrapped one in newspaper and set it in the box, and my fingers kept slipping on the paper. I picked up a framed photo face down on a shelf and turned it over. Oliver and Ava at Christmas. She was wearing the red sweater I gave her, and she was laughing with her head thrown back, mouth wide open, eyes squeezed shut. Oliver had his arm around her. I stared at her face, and my eyes burned. I set the photo in the box, and a hand touched my shoulder, and I spun around so fast I knocked a glass off the shelf. Oliver caught it. "Easy." He was standing right behind me. I hadn't heard him come down. "That's my favorite one of us." He picked it up and held it with both hands. He stared at it, and his chin started trembling. I keep turning it over because I can't look at her face without losing it. She had the best laugh. You know that thing she does where her whole face just disappears? His eyes filled with tears. He wiped them with the back of his hand and set the photo down gently, face up, right where he could see it. I dug my nails into my palm behind my back. Ava's coat was on a hook by the front door, red wool with a red scarf draped over the collar. "She didn't even take her coat," Oliver said softly. "Who leaves without their coat?" He reached out and touched the sleeve. He pulled his hand back like it burned him and turned away, wiping his eyes. He went to the kitchen and I heard water running. He came back and held a glass out to me. "You look like you need this more than I do." His hand was steady and warm when it brushed mine. He smiled. I wrapped both hands around the glass and squeezed until my knuckles went white. I couldn't be in the same room as him anymore. I walked to the bathroom as fast as I could without running and shut the door behind me. My hand fumbled with the lock. It took 3 tries because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I slid down to the floor and pressed my back against the door and shoved my fist in my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. I sat there for 10 seconds with my head between my knees trying to breathe. I splashed water on my face and gripped the sink and squeezed my eyes shut. I pushed myself up and opened the door, and Oliver was standing right outside it. I jerked backward. He was holding my jacket by the collar. His other hand was sliding along the pockets, squeezing the fabric. He looked up, and his hand went still. "You left this in the kitchen." He held it out and smiled. I took the jacket and slung it over my arm and shoved my trembling hands in my pockets. "You're shaking," he said, his head tilted to one side. "Cold house," he called from the kitchen. "Come sit down. I'm making more coffee." I walked in and sat across from him because I didn't have a choice. He picked up the knife and cut another slice of apple, and I flinched. He looked up. "You sure you're okay?" "Fine." He set the knife down and reached across the table and put his hand on mine and squeezed it. "I just want to know she's okay. That's all I want." I stared at his hand on mine. His thumb was rubbing my knuckles. His hand was warm. My sister was frozen in the garage. I bit down on the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. I pulled my hand back and picked up my cup. "Sorry." Jumpy from the dust. He watched me drink. "Your mom called me yesterday. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She kept asking me if Ava seemed different, if she was unhappy." My stomach dropped and I dug my nails into my thighs under the table. He pressed his hand over his eyes. My nails cut half moons into my palms under the table. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I slid it out under the table. The text I'd sent that morning. "Good morning, sunshine." Delivered. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and picked up my cup. I pushed myself up from the table and my legs felt like they were made of water. I walked through the garage door and the freezer was right there, humming, and I had to look away from it. I opened a box on the workbench. Zip ties, plastic sheeting cut to size and folded with sharp creases, bleach, duct tape, rubber gloves. Everything organized like a toolbox. The plastic had been cut into a shape, a long shape. My hands started shaking so hard I dropped the lid and it slammed shut and the sound echoed through the garage. I stepped back and bumped into the freezer and the hum vibrated through my hip and I jumped away from it so fast I knocked a paint can off the shelf. I grabbed my phone. No response from 911. One bar of signal flickering to 0. I typed the message again with shaking fingers and hit send. The progress bar crawled halfway and stopped. I held the phone up toward the ceiling. The bar disappeared. I moved to the corner and tried calling. One ring, then silence. The call dropped. I squeezed the phone so hard the case creaked. A shadow filled the garage doorway. I spun around and shoved my phone in my back pocket. Oliver was standing there. "Did you open the freezer?" My whole body went rigid. I could feel the blood drain out of my face. "No." He looked at me. His eyes moved down to my hands and back up to my face. "Good. Compressor died. Smells pretty rough. The freezer was running. I heard it humming 2 minutes ago." He walked past me so close his shoulder brushed mine. He put his hand flat on the freezer lid. He patted it twice. "Old meat." He looked at me and smiled. His hand was resting on the lid 6 inches above my sister's face. I smiled back. My jaw was aching from the effort. He held the smile for a beat too long, then walked out. The freezer hummed behind me. I crept back through the house, checking every doorway before. I stepped through it. I stopped in the hallway. Oliver was on the couch facing the front door. He wasn't packing anymore. He was just sitting there with his hands on his knees, still, watching the door like he was waiting for something. I looked at the door. The deadbolt was turned. I looked lower. The chain was on. I stared at that chain. My mouth went dry. It hadn't been on when I walked in. I looked at Oliver. I looked at the chain. I looked at the distance between him and the door and the distance between me and the back of the house. I took one step backward. I put my weight down as slowly as I could. A floorboard creaked under my heel and I stopped breathing. "Where are you headed?" He didn't turn around. His voice was casual. "Getting boxes from my car. Sit down." I took another step back, then another. My shoulder blades touched the hallway wall and I pressed myself flat against it. "I really need to get to my car." "Why?" He turned his head and looked at me over his shoulder. The grief was gone. Completely gone. Wiped clean like someone had erased it. His eyes were flat. His mouth was a straight line. Sweat broke out across my forehead and my hands started shaking at my sides. I heard something faint in the distance. Oliver's head tilted toward the window. Sirens. Far away but getting louder. Oliver stood up slowly and turned all the way around, and he was smiling. Not the grieving boyfriend smile. A real one. Wide and calm and steady, and every hair on my body stood up. "I saw her, Oliver." "I know." He didn't ask who. He didn't flinch. "You've known since you came out of the garage. Your hands were shaking and you put the photo down too fast." He took a step toward me. But honestly, I'm a little disappointed. I thought you'd last longer. Ava lasted almost 2 hours before I saw it in her face. My breath caught. What did you just say? Ava found Jenna the same way you found Ava. I sent her to the back room to start packing, told her to check the closet. She opened the hatch, and there was Jenna. He took another step. I pressed my back harder into the wall. She came out shaking, same as you. Tried to act normal, same as you. Smiled at me across the kitchen table while her hands were trembling under it. He tilted his head. Same as you. My legs went weak. That's what this is. That's what you do. Every one of them finds the one before her, and I get to watch them figure it out. I get to sit there and pour coffee and ask about my missing girlfriend and watch them try to hold it together. That's the best part. Not the end. The middle. The part where you know, and I know you know, and you're sitting at my table drinking my coffee trying not to scream. I was inching sideways along the wall toward the garage door. The zip ties in the workbench box. Those weren't for Ava. No, my hands went numb. They were for me. I had your name on the tape. The sirens were on his street now. Red and blue light bounced off the wall behind him and lit up the side of his face. Jenna found the one before her, and Ava found Jenna, and you found Ava, and whoever comes next was going to find you. There's not going to be a next. He smiled at me, and the red and blue light pulsed across his teeth. Why Ava? She loved you. She told me you were going to propose, and she couldn't sleep. She was so happy. His jaw tightened. She found Jenna. She ran for the door. I couldn't let her leave. She was your girlfriend. She was supposed to be afraid longer. She found Jenna too fast. You were better. You lasted all day. My skin crawled. The coffee, the photo, the hand on mine, the smile. Car doors slammed outside. Oliver's head snapped toward the window. His jaw tightened and his hands curled into fists, and he lunged. I grabbed the hallway table and threw it between us. A lamp shattered. He caught his shin on the edge and stumbled, and I was already running. I yanked the garage door open and ran through and spun around to close it. He was right there, 3 feet behind me, eyes wild. I slammed the door. His fingers jammed into the gap. I heard a crack. He screamed so loud it echoed through the garage. He ripped his hand back, and I saw blood on the door edge. I threw the deadbolt with both hands and pressed my back against the door. He hit it with his shoulder. The frame shuddered and dust rained from the hinges. I grabbed the side door handle and twisted, but it was locked. I looked up and saw a sliding bolt near the top of the door frame, 6 inches above my reach. I grabbed a box and dragged it under the door. I climbed up and my shoes slipped on the cardboard. I grabbed the door frame to keep from falling. I reached up and wrapped both hands around the bolt and pulled. It wouldn't move, rusted shut. He hit the garage door again. The wood around the deadbolt cracked. I wiped my palms on my jeans and grabbed the bolt again with both hands. I pulled until my arms shook and my fingers went white and my feet were sliding on the box. Come on, come on, come on. The bolt screeched and moved half an inch. He slammed the door a third time. The frame cracked. Through the gap in the splintering wood, I could see his face. I pulled on the bolt with everything I had and screamed, and the bolt shot sideways with a grinding shriek. I twisted the handle and threw the door open. The box tipped under me and I fell through the doorway onto the grass. I pushed up and ran. The garage door crashed open behind me. His footsteps hit the concrete, then the grass. He was fast. Faster than I expected. I could hear him closing the gap with every stride. My lungs were burning. I pumped my arms and sprinted around the side of the house. My foot caught a garden hose and I went down hard. My chin hit the dirt. He was right behind me. I could hear him breathing. I scrambled up with dirt in my mouth and ran harder than I have ever run. I came around the front corner and the cruisers were there with lights going. I screamed so loud my voice cracked and my throat burned. An officer spun toward me with his weapon drawn. I threw my hands up, still running. My legs gave out on the lawn, and I hit the grass and rolled onto my back, gasping for air, staring up at the sky with my chest heaving. I looked back. Oliver was standing at the corner of the house. He just stopped. He rolled his shoulders back, straightened his shirt, put his hands in his pockets, and walked back like he was going for an evening stroll. 2 officers took off after him. There's a body in the freezer in the garage. It's my sister. And there's another one in the crawl space under the bedroom. An officer grabbed my shoulders and I was talking so fast the words were running together. They went through the side garage door. I sat on the sidewalk wrapped in a shock blanket, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. They brought him out in cuffs. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't screaming. He was calm and his breathing was steady, and he looked the same as he had when he opened the front door and hugged me. He looked at me as they walked him past. His face didn't change at all. I would have made it quick. That's more than Ava got. I dropped onto the curb. My whole body was shaking, and I couldn't make it stop. A detective crouched in front of me. None of your texts went through. Not one. I stared at him. Your mom called us. She's been calling every day for 3 weeks telling us Oliver was lying. Nobody took her seriously. He looked down. She drove to the station today, walked in wearing your sister's sweatshirt with a legal pad full of notes, and screamed at us until we sent a car. My eyes filled with tears, and I pressed both hands over my face. I told her she was crazy, and she saved my life. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. I called my mom. She picked up on the first ring the way she'd been picking up on the first ring for 3 weeks. Did they find her? I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Honey? Did they find Ava? I pressed my hand over my eyes and my whole body shook. Mom, I need you to come to Oliver's house. What happened? Is she okay? Did Oliver find something? Mom, just come, please. You're scaring me. Tell me she's okay. Just tell me she's okay. I couldn't say it. I sat there on the curb with the phone pressed against my face, and I could hear my mom's breathing getting faster, and I could hear her grabbing her keys, and I could hear the door slam, and I could hear her start crying before the car even started. I looked at the front door of the house, and I could see Ava's red coat still hanging on the hook inside the hallway. My mom had asked me to bring something of hers home. A detective told me they found a third set of zip ties and plastic in the bedroom closet with my name on a piece of tape on the outside. I looked down at my phone. I scrolled to the voicemail from the night she disappeared and pressed play and held it to my ear. Her voice came through, shaky and rushed and scared. Hey, call me when you can. It's important. I squeezed my eyes shut. She had needed me, and I was asleep. I pressed play again. I held the phone against my ear and closed my eyes and listened to my sister's voice one more time.